Coming up on Tech News Today, Chinese phone maker Xiaomi is moving servers out of China. AT&T is putting more and more LTE in cars. And social network Ello doubles down on an ad-free experience for users. But will it work? All that and more next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, October 23rd. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at gazelle.com. Hello, everybody. This is Tech News Today, the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Sarah Lane. Mike Elgin has the week off.
That's right.
And he's Jason Howell.
Oh, I'm Jason Howell. This is how we did it a year ago, Sarah. We introduced ourselves.
I have
something in 2014.
Wait a second. You're not allowed to introduce yourself anymore?
Well, no, Mike throws to people. You know, so it's cool.
So something
this is just how it goes.
So,
it was different with Leo too.
So something like, who do we got on the decks today?
That's right. Who's at the ones and the twos? Yeah, exactly.
It's Jason Howell. Of course, it's Thursday, so we're also joined by Elise Hu, tech and culture reporter for NPR. Hello, Elise.
Hey, friends. Good to be with you.
Good to have you. In fact, I don't know how I would do this without you. I was kind of worried about hosting Tech News Today. It's, I do Tech News tonight. There's a whole different format. I mean, Tech News is Tech News, but I wanted to make sure I did y'all proud. So thanks for joining me today.
This is going to be great.
Yeah, we got our thing of the day. It's actually a few things of the day. Kind of a big week for earnings today, later today, which we will be covering it in some form on TN2, depending on what the announcements are. Microsoft, Amazon, Nokia, and Pandora are all announcing their quarterly earnings this week. It's been kind of a weird week for earnings. Some companies doing pretty well. Some companies not so good at all. All right, let's move on to our first story. And joining us to talk a little bit about that is Michael Kahn, the Beijing correspondent, IDG News Service at PCWorld.com. Hello, Michael.
Hi.
So the story that we have is that Xiaomi, who's a device maker in China, a very popular one, is moving data outside of China following some privacy concerns. Now, Xiaomi has devices sold in 7 countries in Asia. Used to be China only, so they've certainly expanded. They're on tap to sell around 60 million devices this year. So why are they moving servers outside of China?
Well, yeah, they've actually been doing this since the start of the year, according to what their vice president said, Hugo Barra, who used to be at Google and who was sort of poached by Xiaomi. But they've been doing this mainly as a way to just reduce the latency in a lot of their e-commerce sites and the software in their phones, which makes a lot of sense if you if your customers are in another country and you want to have those data centers a lot closer. So that makes sense. But they also said that they want to just kind of adhere more to some of the privacy policies in different countries, and they said that this would help do that. And so there was kind of those two different things is what Hugo Barra said in his post the other day.
Earlier this summer, I know Xiaomi was found to be sharing user information with a server in China. F-Secure, a security company, found device numbers, customer phone numbers, phone contacts, text messages, all being shared with no way for customers to opt out. Xiaomi has since allowed opt-out capabilities. But yeah, you mentioned privacy. How much does this have to do with moving at least some software operations outside of China?
Yeah, I mean the privacy thing is obviously a big deal, because especially now with in the recent years with the NSA spying and China itself, there's a lot of concern about that this nation has a lot of censorship, and it also is gets a lot of criticism for allegedly hacking a lot of other countries. And so I think there is, for a Chinese company, it is a little more sensitive for them to deal with these privacy concerns when they have this reputation. The country itself has this reputation it has to deal with, and a lot of those privacy concerns originally were coming out of Taiwan and Hong Kong, which they're more of a democratic places, and they're more concerned about what influence China might have, and so that played a part into generating some of those privacy concerns.
So, Michael Kahn, how difficult operationally will this migration actually be? Because, we're reading that obviously, or you wrote that Chinese user data will actually stay on Chinese servers, and then the outside countries, other Asian countries, will be migrated. So is this going to be a thorny process?
Yeah, I imagine it could be a thorny process trying to figure out where your users are, and I'm not even sure if maybe Xiaomi would have to implement something in their phones asking their users, like, where are you really based? And I'm using a Xiaomi phone, and I'm not a Chinese citizen. I'm a U.S. citizen. So could I put my data somewhere else in the U.S. and in their data centers with Amazon, or am I still going to be in the Chinese server? And so that's a really great question, and it's unclear how that will work. There was no mention in it, but that could be a difficult process.
The MIUI, actually, I keep wanting to say MIUI services, it sounds like will be housed in Amazon data centers in Oregon, obviously in the U.S., and Singapore. Obviously, MIUI is a stock and aftermarket firmware for smartphones and tablet computers that's based on Android that Xiaomi uses. Michael, being in Beijing and kind of on the mainland of China and knowing a little bit more about how these brands are seen locally, what is the general sense of Xiaomi as a brand as compared to some other Chinese brands? It sounds like starting in China was very lucrative for the company. They've since expanded, probably would love to get into different markets. Does this make sense, addressing privacy concerns, making sure that the software side of the services is spread out more globally? Is this the right move for a company like Xiaomi in order to compete with other Chinese manufacturers?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the right move, and the earlier the better, because Xiaomi came about just 3 years ago, and at the time they were. One reason why they're so successful is that they're offering these phones that are pretty cheap, but they have a lot of high specs. So you could buy, one phone for like less than half of the price of what an iPhone goes in China. And so that was a big reason why they were so successful and able to really disrupt the market in China by selling these phones at such cheap prices. And obviously that model, they're going to take that model out into the world and try to become a successful international brand. And so I think these privacy concerns are really kind of more of an international, coming from the international side, because in China there really isn't as much talk about that. But as Xiaomi expands, there is going to be concerns from users who are more sensitive to those privacy issues. And so I think Xiaomi, it no longer, I don't think it really thinks of itself as a Chinese company anymore. It has big visions, and to be an international company, you have to adopt international practices. And so to do this as early as possible is the right move.
Speaking of privacy issues, at least in the U.S., you ask anybody, What's a company that you equate with privacy issues? And you might say Facebook. Certainly, Elise. There's some Facebook news that somehow ties into what we're already talking about.
Right. We opened the show in China, so let's stay in China to talk with Michael Kahn about what sort of blew up the internet here in the U.S. Yesterday afternoon, which was video of Mark Zuckerberg, founder and CEO of Facebook, of course, whipping out his Mandarin Chinese. He spoke and did a Q&A at Tsinghua University, which is considered the MIT of China, and spoke in Mandarin the entire time. Now, first of all, Michael Kahn, what did he say?
Well, he talked about all sorts of things. I mean, he talked about why he is learning Chinese and his ambitions for Facebook and what he plans to do here in China during the time he's here. And, there were even questions about what his favorite color was. And
what is it, by the way?
And I think it was blue, if I remember right. But, just all sorts of things, and it was pretty much like 99% all in Chinese, and it was and so people here were impressed by that he really didn't stop with the Chinese. He kept going.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Michael Kahn, what you thought of this, because it sounds like both of us are sort of American-born Chinese speakers, and I thought his Chinese was actually quite terrible, but impressive in that he was able to not quit, right? He was able to speak sentences. So what was your take on his performance?
Yeah, I mean, it was maybe a little cringe-worthy at times, but at the same time, it's like, he's taking the effort, and he's really, trying something different and challenging himself. And it was obviously, you have to give him respect for that, because I've seen so many other tech executives come in here from, the US or other countries, and they always will, speak English and very little Chinese, just a few greetings. But, to see Mark Zuckerberg just go all out, you have to respect that, even though it was kind of rough at times to understand it.
I would think that the Chinese market would be so important for Facebook. Yeah, they wanted as many Chinese customers as they can, and there have been some issues with that in the past. It's certainly if nothing more, a really polite gesture, I would think. And Mark Zuckerberg's wife is Chinese, I believe. So there's probably some personal interest on his end as well.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the reasons why he's learning Chinese, because his wife is Chinese, and her family, they all speak Chinese. And one of the jokes was that her grandma only speaks Chinese. So when they were going to get married, he ended up telling her grandmother in Chinese that they were going to get married, and that shocked her. And so from the internet, users that I've seen commenting about it, a lot of them have been really impressed, and they were just so surprised, and they thought it was a great gesture, as you said, and a way to just connect, and people have said Chinese people here, they spend so much time learning English, but for once an American, a foreigner is trying to learn Chinese, and more foreigners are no doubt doing that.
And Michael Kahn, one sort of bigger picture question about Facebook in China. Now, Facebook is still not actually in China or available to Chinese users. Is that ambition changing? Is this gesture a sign that they are wanting to make some inroads in a country that's considered kind of a security state?
Yeah, that was some of the speculation today, that, maybe Mark Zuckerberg was trying to kind of charm his way into China. But at the same time, it's really hard to envision them coming to China, just because Facebook has been at the center of so many, controversies and political movements. And China may simply be very afraid of having a site like that with that, that brand, that the Facebook, it shouts out, so much. And China is very heavy on censorship, and they've blocked not only Facebook, but starting, just I think a few weeks back, they started blocking Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. So at the same time, the Chinese officials have said that they are open to Facebook coming as long as they follow the rules, which would mean following the censorship. And another site, LinkedIn, they have entered in China this year, and they are trying to follow those censorship rules. And people are watching to see what happens, and so who knows what Facebook might do. I don't. It's China already has a lot of its own social networking sites, so even if it does arrive, there might not be that interest that they thought there would be.
Well, thanks so much, Michael Kahn, for joining us all the way from Beijing. He's the Beijing correspondent at IDG News Service, and Michael_Kahn on Twitter. Let folks know where they can keep up with your work before we let you go.
Yeah, Twitter is great, and I'm also on, my articles also go to PC World, Mac World, Computer World, so those are the best ways to stay in touch.
You are everywhere. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right after the break, we're actually going to talk about one of Facebook's competitors. Can you guess who it is? It kind of sounds like an echo. But first,
I've never heard of it.
I know. I actually haven't heard of it much at all.
The last couple of weeks,
the last couple of weeks.
We have not been talking about it at all.
Well, if you can guess what it is, then hold your horses. Let's take a quick break and thank Gazelle for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. Maybe you're thinking about getting the new iPad. Are you on the fence? Have you decided that you got to have the 6 Plus? Or, screw Apple. You want a new Nexus phone. Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone or iPad or smartphone for cash. Gazelle makes selling your used gadgets fast and simple. If you haven't used it before, go to gazelle.com, GAZELLE.com, and just enter in your item. Any item. In fact, tell Gazelle the condition that it's in. It might not be in pristine condition. There might be a scratch or two. They'll even buy broken iPhones and iPads. Sometimes you shatter your screen, you get something new. It's sitting in your junk drawer. Don't do that. Get money. In fact, get a risk-free offer for your gadgets. And Gazelle will even throw in free shipping when it's time to send it in. When it's time to get paid, you can choose a check, you can choose via PayPal, or get an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card as well. So go to gazelle.com now and get an offer for your iPhone, iPad, or other gadget. And lock in today's price because, they lose value the longer you wait. You can lock in today's price for 30 days, which gives you some time to transfer data and get the new gadget that you're looking for. Payment is fast within a few days of your item being received by Gazelle. And again, those offers are good for 30 days. So you've got time to decide what you're going to do with your upgraded device. Gazelle will also wipe your data for free. They have no problem doing that. You could do it yourself, but if you don't have to worry. Gazelle will do that for you. And the company has paid nearly $170 million to over 1 million customers. So clearly, it's a format that works. You can check out things like the iPhone 5S, or even the iPhone 4. I've got an iPhone 4. Why do I have it anymore? I will never use it again. The iPad Wi-Fi Mini. The list goes on. All sorts of gadgets that you don't use anymore. You can get money for those gadgets. You're not going to use them. Get money to put towards the gadgets that you actually want. What's your iPhone, iPad, or other gadget worth? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. But do it now because remember, your gadgets don't gain value. They lose value the longer you wait. And thanks to Gazelle for sponsoring this episode of TNT. All right, Elise, before the break, I mentioned a Facebook competitor. I was talking about Ello. Ello, which has raised $5.5 million to grow its network. And, Ello, if you're not already a member or you haven't really been following the story, it got a lot of attention as not just a Facebook alternative, but really the social network that wanted to be ad-free, that wanted to go against basically what happens to all companies and social networks, particularly not just when they're public, but when they are beholden to investors, and they have to make money in order to pay the bills and pay the folks that had helped them start their venture in the first place. And it's been kind of controversial because Ello has taken venture capital money, yet they say, we'll never sell your ad. So the question has always been, well, okay, how are they going to make money? All right, so CEO Paul Budnitz has said, yes, we've taken $5.5 million. He also says the money will be used on things like product development and back-end infrastructure. Apparently, Ello's user base has grown so rapidly that they've had some server issues. He also says that the company already has over 1 million users that are registered and an additional 3 million people that are on a waiting list that they don't really have the infrastructure for. So again, that's why they're growing.
So it hasn't really reached scale then.
It sounds like
it has
no.
a lot of room to grow. My issue, I am on Ello. Please friend me on Ello because I need more friends. Or at least virtually. And the reason why it hasn't been a destination that I go to every day is because there's not enough of a community on it. And so it sounds like if they're going to be ad-free, then they're going to have to rely on people finding this so necessary and becoming so loyal to this platform in their lives that they're willing to actually pay for it, right? Because that's kind of another way to think about making money. And so it sounds like they're going to really have to scale and then scale quickly before it loses its hotness. And then become like really one of the sort of I must have this as part of my daily routine sort of necessities in our lives. And it's a really crowded field and to enter, like we already have so much content that's competing for our attention.
That's the absolute problem I have with Ello as well. And of course I signed up and I visited a couple times and clicked around and thought, well, there's about 3 people that I know that I've connected with, and I'm sure there are more, but it seemed very disjointed. And again, this is a few weeks ago when it was kind of the hot company to, reserve your username. What's interesting is, even though Ello is not explicitly laying out what their, paid tier plans might be, one would assume that's really the only way to make money if you're not going to go the ad route. But they've gone so far as to draw up a company manifesto, which should guarantee users an ad-free experience for any user who says, well, you say no ads now, but what about in the future? Budnitz and his co-founders converted Ello to a public benefit corporation based in Delaware. That means it's still a business and it can still make money, but it prioritizes and provides a benefit to society along with the usual profits to shareholders. And he goes on to say all of Ello's founders and investors have signed a letter in writing that say, we agree with Ello's mission and we're not going to screw around with it. That does, this is odd to me, but I do appreciate the fact that the company's like, yeah, we understand that everybody is really skeptical because history shows that eventually you just go an ad model because that's the easiest way to make money, and then things change. We want to say from the very get-go that, and maybe they don't have their revenue plan completely ironed out yet, but here's what we won't do. And not only the people who are responsible for founding the company, but the people who gave us money to keep the company going have all agreed that this is the way to go. I don't know, Elise, I have to say I got to give them credit for standing out in this way.
Yeah, but standing out is their differentiation point, right? So this is also something that's a boon to their bottom line to say, this is what we're selling. We're selling this notion that you're not going to be data mined and tracked with ads. And so they're making this bet in order to also make money down the road by saying, like, you sort of saying customers might not like being tracked so much that they're willing to pay for this product or pay to join this community. So we'll see.
Yes, we will see. It's I don't want to say that Ello is a ghost town. In fact, I hate that term because that's just an easy way to sort of write off a network that you've decided that you don't have time to use.
It's totally a relative. Like, it's all relative, right?
Exactly. And I know that a lot of people are excited about Ello. What I think is interesting about it is it's not so much that Ello is ready for prime time. It seemed like it wasn't to me, which is why I've sort of forgotten about it. But obviously, if they've got 1 million registered users and 3 million waiting in a queue to join, there's a lot of potential there. I mean, that says a lot about the social networks that we currently have at our disposal and how they're not necessarily working for people.
That's right. Yeah, we'll just have to watch and see.
All right, let's move on to connected cars. I am a commuter, and so I'm pretty excited about the future of my car being more technologically advanced.
That's right. So the headline here is that AT&T in the third quarter of this year added 2 million new connections to its LTE network. A lot of those are traditional kind of phone connections, but the majority of its 2 million new connections from that quarter came from connected cars. 500,000 cars got connected to the network, and that's because GM, Audi, Volvo, and others are actually rolling out their enabled vehicles. And so this will make it easier for us to have digital listening experiences, for example, and just kind of turn away from just terrestrial radio. There's a lot more possibilities when cars are also connected to networks, just as our phones are.
So we're talking about, all right, so my car at this point, I can make it a connected car by connecting my phone via Bluetooth and
Bluetooth technology, right? So that's sort of level one,
right?
But what's going to happen in the coming years is that the cars themselves will be connected, and then they'll already have sort of internet-enabled listening experiences. And so this whole notion of the FM, AM radio being our only choice, and then just getting whatever you're in the zone for because of broadcast connections or terrestrial connections, like that's going to be over, right? So long as these cars end up being connected, and we're moving towards that, and it's really exciting that it's happening so quickly.
You know, I think the first real wow connected car that I ever sat in was the Tesla Model S, which I believe is only a 3G connection, but yeah, you know, it's got this huge screen right in the dash, and you know, surfing the web as a passenger, of course, not a driver. I do not have a Tesla, and I don't have Tesla money, but I remember thinking, wow, this is really interesting. You know, basically we're rocketing down the highway in a big hotspot, and
right.
I love the idea of it. At the same time. And I know that connected cars this is all the rage, but at the same time, you have so much more control over how your car is connected when it's coming from your smartphone, and maybe that's just because that's the only way that I can do it now. But I wonder how much people will want, a smartphone that just can be docked and then talk to a car's interior computer, rather than the computer being in the car itself, because then you've got all these proprietary ways of, displaying the information. And do you have any thoughts on which way is better?
This is such a new frontier that it sounds like from the automakers talking about it, that there are a bunch of different sort of packages, or there's middle roads between just the total Bluetooth connection that we're doing now to the fully integrated connected car experience. So, Sarah, it sounds like for you, since you kind of want to have a little bit of both worlds, that those will also be available. So, the automakers and their collaborators have been working on this for the last few years now, and now it's actually starting to come to market. So it'll be really interesting to see where they actually land.
It's also interesting, these companies, AT&T and Verizon, and really, the mobile operators, particularly in the U.S., but really worldwide. They've got to come up with new ways to surprise and delight their customers. Having 4G connectivity in cars, this is something that people want. This is the next frontier for a lot of this, LTE type speeds. And in a year from now, it'll be interesting to see how many cars can actually handle this. Because I think we're still in the phase where we're talking a lot about it, but there aren't too many real world examples of this working well.
Yeah, that's right. But like everything else, it'll probably happen pretty quickly. And then 2 years from now, we're going to look back on 2014 and be like, I can't believe we weren't sure about connected cars. So,
right. Yeah, remember when we told everybody that Ello was a ghost town? How wrong we were. Yeah, and we've got smartwatches all the way up our sleeves. All right, let's move on to a story that we've been following. Certainly, I know Tech News Today has, and we've been following on TN2 as well. That Apple and GT Advanced Technologies, which is a company that makes a Sapphire production house for a variety of Apple products, the iPhone, the upcoming Apple Watch as well, have settled some differences. And joining us to talk about the details of that is Eric Slivka, editor-in-chief at Mac Rumors. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how you doing?
Really well. I heard you were on the show yesterday, so thanks for being on 2 days in a row.
Got my iPad Air 2 yesterday, too, so I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, what do you think about it? Is it as light as air?
It's pretty light, and it's very thin. But otherwise, it's got a Touch ID, but, it's still an iPad, so. it's nice to have. I'm definitely looking forward to trying it out some more.
I feel like that is pretty much what everybody says. Best iPad ever. Do you need it? Which one do you have? Do you have last year's model? You're probably okay.
Right.
So earlier this week, the news came out that Apple and their Sapphire supplier, GT Advanced Technologies, had reached an agreement to dissolve their partnership. I know that GT had asked in court that they wanted certain details about their confidentiality agreement with Apple published to sort of allow them to explain more about why they were filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So it sounds like GT is shutting down operations at the Sapphire production plant in Mesa, Arizona, which is owned by Apple. What's going on here? What are the details of the settlement?
Well, yeah, it looks like GT was burning through $1 million or more per day trying to get this Sapphire operation up and running for Apple. And Apple wasn't under any obligation to purchase any Sapphire from GT. They provided GT with some big loans to help them get started. But that money was kind of running out, and some of the payments from Apple got delayed, and so GT really found themselves in a money crunch there. And so they've decided to get out of the operation. They don't want to be a Sapphire producer anymore, so they had to declare bankruptcy, and they're shutting down the operation. And now they've had to settle with Apple about the money that Apple loaned them, and what happens now with all the furnaces that Apple helped bankroll, and where we go from here.
So does the legal trouble and how it's sort of breaking up what was previously entwined, is this going to go on for several months then?
Well, it's certainly with the bankruptcy court involved, and there are a lot of other people who are owed money from GT, so that all needs to get worked out. And it's going to take GT some time to wind operations down. When you set up a Sapphire furnace to make some boules of Sapphire, it takes about 30 days. And then they still need to be processed. And some of those were already going when GT declared bankruptcy. And so they've asked permission to continue with those because those are worth something. So they want to get rid of those, and they need to wind down the operation. They need to store the furnaces. They want to be able to resell them. And that's a big part of the agreement, is that Apple will be able to receive some of the proceeds from the sale of these furnaces. There's over 2,000 furnaces in the Arizona plant that GT is going to try and sell off. And so Apple will get a piece of that to help repay some of the money they're owed, over $400 million. And so, GT has said it's going to take until around the end of the year, maybe even a little bit longer, to try and get stuff shut down. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Eric, I know that before the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus were announced officially in September, there was a lot of talk about, there's going to be, more Sapphire than ever as part of these models. And that really didn't happen. And now we know there was some legal trouble going on behind the scenes. What happens to Apple's aspirations with adding more Sapphire, which is obviously, it's strong, it's hard to scratch, it's already in around the Touch ID button and camera lens in iPhones, and of course the upcoming Apple Watch as well, that we expect next year, but there are still quite a few questions about how that will roll out. How much is Sapphire in Apple's future?
Yeah, clearly it's something that they were really interested in, and they invested all this time and money in. And there's some debate about whether they really intended to put it in the iPhone 6, and it looks like it probably were. It was just based on how much Sapphire GT was trying to produce, and it just didn't happen. So where they go from here, it's not clear. Are they going to find another supplier for an iPhone 6S next year, where the S stands for Sapphire? I don't know. But as far as the Apple Watch goes, the word on the street is that they've got some other suppliers that they can tap for the smaller Sapphire pieces that they'll need for that. So it looks like that'll probably be a go. And Sapphire is not on all models of the Apple Watch. Some of them have glass instead. So it's not entirely clear exactly how much volume they're going to need. They don't even know how many Apple Watches they're going to sell at first. So, Sapphire still has an important role to play with the Touch ID sensor, and with the rear camera, it protects that as well on the iPhones. So, I'm sure they're still going to keep exploring things. So it'll be interesting.
Eric Slivka is the editor-in-chief over at Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for joining us, Eric. And before you go, let folks know where they can keep up with more of your writing.
Yeah, I'm editor-in-chief at Mac Rumors, so you can visit us there at macrumors.com, and I'm on Twitter at @eslivka.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you.
So, Elise, Yahoo had its earnings earlier this week, and actually beat the street a bit. Still a lot of questions about what Yahoo actually is doing as a company, a multimedia company, whatever it is they call themselves now. But they're certainly still competing with Google, at least in the world of browsers and search.
Yeah, it updated its search a little bit to now include more personal information that should make your travel life easier, like your flights and upcoming events in search results. So Google, competitor to Yahoo, in 2012 kind of quietly rolled out a feature like this, where if you are signed in as to your Gmail account, your Google account, that information that might be helpful to you, like your upcoming trips, where you're flying from, where you're flying to, what time, flight information, would actually just sort of automatically be integrated into your search information. And so, or your profile information. And so Yahoo is simply doing something very similar, but a little bit later. And by a little bit, we mean 2 years after we first already started seeing something like this.
Wouldn't it be nice if at some point Yahoo, well, I don't know if it's nice, but it would be like bizarro world if Google was chasing Yahoo in search features like this. It's funny. I actually found myself searching Yahoo yesterday because I was prompted by my my laptop software to update Adobe Flash, which is the most annoying thing in the entire world. So I did that, and then of course it dumps me into a new Chrome browser tab, and it wants me to It was a Yahoo search page. So I thought, I haven't seen this in a while. And so I did a few searches, and it works great. I have to say, I kind of love Yahoo search in a way. It's not really much different than Google, but I guess they don't really have any choice but to follow Google. Google has just been the industry standard and seems to be so far ahead of any competition for so many years. I don't know if Yahoo has
certainly
a choice.
Certainly on the search front. But you were talking a little bit earlier in the intro about how there's a lot of questions about what Yahoo wants to be. And I think that's a really interesting question because Marissa Mayer in her time seems to be really interested in acquiring sort of the hip millennial companies and then supporting that. And then their growth sort of on the media side as a news aggregator and a news supplier or a content provider has also been interesting. So what Yahoo winds up being may be very different than what it started from with search. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's Silicon Valley is full of companies that started as one thing and ended up becoming really successful as something else.
Marissa Mayer said on Yahoo's earnings call earlier this week that their mobile revenue was really strong. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but stronger than it's ever been, on tap to double next year. She really pushed that Yahoo was winning as far as making money via mobile, which is very important for any company. It reminded me of how well Google has done on this front. In fact, just a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday morning even, I played around a little bit with Google's new Inbox, yeah. Email. Gosh, I was like, what is the term for when you read messages that are sent electronically by other people? Email app Inbox, which is really meant to be consumed via mobile and be able to extract items like flights and times and phone numbers and all sorts of data from inside emails, which makes me wonder what emails are going to be like in a while when we don't have to actually say, dear so-and-so, here's the paragraph that I want to share with you from Sarah. You can almost write emails differently because Google is attempting to glean what you need to know as a recipient from that. It'll be interesting to see if that works and what that means for other companies like Yahoo that are competing with Google, who do want to be able to know enough about you as a signed-in user to give you the information that you're looking for front and center when you're using their services.
You're right.
All right, let's move on to a little calendar item here. Microsoft is discontinuing free Xbox Music streaming on Windows 8.1 and on the web on December 1st, 2014. So if you're a user, you got a little bit more time, but not much, just over a month. It doesn't impact you if you're using the Xbox Music Pass, but those have been streaming for free. Well, your days are numbered. Microsoft had the announcement. We're focusing Xbox Music to deliver the ultimate music purchase and subscription service experience for our customers. With Xbox Music Pass, you have access to millions of songs on all sorts of devices. You can download music for offline listening and create playlists that automatically sync across your devices. I think probably Microsoft threw in the towel on the free music thing. It was just like, you know what? We've got too much competition. Let's focus on our paying users, and this isn't our forte. In other news, Christian Bale has been tapped to play Steve Jobs in an upcoming biopic. Aaron Sorkin is writing the screenplay. He says that Christian Bale is going to crush it in the lead role. Now, Elise, I don't want to toot my own horn too much.
But here it comes.
But I'm going to anyway. I don't want to, but I'm going to. A couple weeks ago on iPad Today, Leo Laporte and I were talking about the idea that Leonardo DiCaprio, I guess, was rumored to be, signed on for this role. And then for some reason there was a conflict and he couldn't do it. And we sort of went, Leonardo DiCaprio, great actor, but he doesn't seem like a Steve Jobs to me. And I said, you know who would? Maybe Christian Bale. Kind of looks like him. He's kind of, known to sometimes snap at people. He's perfect. So maybe, I don't know.
You nailed it. You nailed it. And he's also known for losing drastic amounts of weight for his roles. So while he is shooting this biopic, he will also be able to lose 40 pounds in a really short amount of time.
What do you think?
So other talents that could be useful for this movie.
What do you think? I mean, it's I don't know. I feel like it's another day, another biopic about Steve Jobs that somebody is, we've had a few of these now. I feel
right. Is this like the 17th one?
It seems like there was an Ashton Kutcher one. There was a Noah Wyle played Steve Jobs at one point, right?
I'm sure there was one on Lifetime.
Probably, yes. I don't know. I like Christian Bale. I think he's a wonderful actor. It seems like a really good fit. But of course, it's all about the story, and we know the story. So does it make sense to bring to life on the screen? I guess we'll know soon enough. Christian Bale, congratulations, I suppose. All right, our TNT fan of the day is Vin Dao, based in Vietnam, who said, listening to Tech News Today in early morning Saigon traffic. Elise, I don't know about you. I've been to Saigon, and the traffic there is insane. So please, Vin, have caution when you're taking selfies in traffic. But thank you for listening.
See, when connected cars become connected bikes, that'll be really dangerous. So let's just, stop at connected cars.
Yeah, really. And how does that work with, speakers or headphones? Right. Or, I mean, there's a lot of noise pollution already on all those motorbikes.
Right.
How do you watch or listen to TNT? We would love to know. Record a video or take a picture, as Vin did, of your setup and post it either on our Google Plus page or via Twitter or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we'll make sure to find it and put it in a future show. You can also search the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and see them all for yourself. And that, friends, that is our show. That is our Tech News Today. Thank you so much, Elise Hu, tech and culture reporter at NPR and regular Thursday co-host on this program.
You're welcome. It's so nice and fun to do this with you, Sarah, so we should do it again sometime.
I would love it. Well, next time Mike Elgin goes on vacation, I will see to it that I am at least responsible for Thursday.
That sounds great.
For everybody watching and listening, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on a variety of platforms: Stitcher Radio, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, via RSS. You've got lots of options. In fact, you can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter. The name is Tech News Today TV. You can subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. And, of course, you can give us feedback on Twitter or Google Plus using that hashtag TechNewsToday. Send us email at tnt@twit.tv. Leave us a voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. God, I haven't said that in a while. And I'm actually going to be back here at the news desk for Tech News tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific today, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Twit Network. And I'll actually be hosting TNT tomorrow as well. I'm Sarah Lane, and we'll see you then.